I am about as big a basketball fan as you are going to find, and I really loved the show Winning Time on HBO, and I find all this controversy around it to be totally ridiculous. I don't understand. I liked all 10 episodes. I liked the progression that it took throughout the series. I really appreciated that in the end we knew more about the characters than we did in the beginning, and that just goes to show that some of these controversies, I think, were spawned from watching one episode of the show. Everyone has heard that Jerry West is suing them, that Kareem Abdul-Jabbar wrote this piece about the show right after the pilot aired, and I just can't help but think that it's a couple of factors. One, similar to what we see around the world now, that the people that are offended aren't actually the target audience anyway, so there's that. And secondly, that they might not have just continued to watch the show and watch the characters evolve, including Jerry West, right? Because I found that people hated on the Norm Nixon scene at the party in the beginning of the series. Everyone reacted right away. Oh, they didn't hate each other. He didn't hate Magic Johnson. They're fighting. They're playing the pickup game at the party. What the hell? This is wrong. They're friends. And then the season goes on to explain their relationship and how it improves and how it becomes better. So I feel like the show followed a lot of those same kind of classic storytelling facts, that you have to start with the relationship not being as good as it is in the end, or changing or evolving or developing in some way. How are we hating on the television show for that? Getting to know Jerry West's character, it's not like he was a criminal in the show. That, sue them, fine. If it was shown him assaulting people or anything like that, he was just a character, and they chose bold traits, which is the way you should create compelling characters. Not to mention, Jerry West's own book was called My Charmed Tormented Life. Is this a direct characterization? I can't say. I don't think it's required in a television show, even if it's based on true events. The whole based on true events phrase is taking creative license in the first place. But I don't think it's a stretch enough to sue over. Nor do I even think it's a bad thing that they did. That's the real key to me here. It was just a deep character. It wasn't a malicious character. It was teaching people that you can be mad at a certain thing or go through a tough time even when on the outside it looks like everything should be peachy and totally fine. And coming through that and evolving with the character and rooting for the character in the end, and having the scene in episode 10, the finale, where he can barely watch the game, he's pacing up and down, but you really are rooting for him to see the victory and to get to the other side. I don't think you would do that if it weren't a good character. It was part of exactly what made this show compelling. Everyone wanted to see the Jerry West scenes. So he's going to sue them over being one of the more watchable characters on the show. If it was criminal activity or something really belittling or scandalous, fine. But it didn't seem like that. It seemed like complaining about a good character in a feel-good show, and that's just really silly to me. Would it frustrate me if the character wasn't exactly like me? Sure. But frustration isn't the same as litigation. So I just can't get over the fact that there are some reviews about this show that are just damning the inaccuracy of it and not really digging into, well, why is Jerry West suing them in the first place? He doesn't need the money. Is this just I don't want to say it's just him trying to sell his own book to sell his own story. You deserve to be able to tell your own story. Go ahead. But to sue the creator for making an entertaining show and an interesting character that wasn't malicious or bad just feels really, I don't know, I guess anyone can sue each other in 2022, but I hope it doesn't go over. And I hope he doesn't. They'll probably settle, but I hope he actually doesn't win, because it sets a really bad precedent for what entertainment is. And unless it's something really bad, I don't think you should be able to take action against that. In fact, I think other people probably have bigger gripes than Jerry West does, or Kareem. I thought Kareem's character was really, truly very interesting and deep, the same way he actually is. Jamal Wilkes actually has the biggest gripe of anyone, I think. That dude dropped 37 points in the finals clincher, Game 6, that Lakers vs. Sixers series. Nowhere to be found in the show. But I get that too. You can't fit everything. It's a dramatization. It's an hour. The series, the game itself took 2.5 hours. And you have an hour to tell the whole story, plus all the characters. It's just not possible to fit everything in. He was a sniper, though. I don't really know why they left him out. Hall of Famer, I guess just more confident in other actors, or they had already done the storylines for other actors, so there was nowhere to slip him in, kind of. People would have been like, well, now you're showing this guy score 37. It's supposed to mean something to us. So I kind of get that. Maybe there were hard cuts in the editing room. I mean, we don't know. To judge these shows based on these, like, things you might not have loved is really... It's fine. Like, if you don't want to watch the show, then fine. But I think you're missing out on something really special. Because, like I said, I'm a huge basketball fan. And I don't think the point is to pick apart how many dribbles Magic took before he got to the rim on the play with 4 minutes left in the third quarter. It's like, come on. What are we talking about? The show is barely even about the basketball. It revolves around the team. But the fact that they pulled off the basketball parts as well as they did is unbelievable. It's about the relationship of the characters. It's about the owner. It's really a Jerry Buss show. John C. Reilly, this is his show. For now, anyway. And the vibe of the time and the city and bringing the Lakers out of irrelevancy, all of that just seemed much more interesting than ragging on specific character traits. So I'm disappointed in the way some people are reacting to this, especially people that didn't watch, because now all they're hearing is the headlines, and it's kind of a bummer. I thought the gameplay was surprisingly good. It's not as good as some other things, but considering that these are not athletes and they are just actors, the stylized shooting that Adam McKay does, or producing anyway, is really leading itself perfectly to just being entertaining and fun to watch. It still is the same kind of feeling that you would have gotten by watching the games. I've gone and watched those games. It's the same kind of deal. They hit the right beats, but I don't think it needs to be absolutely perfect. Now, that said, they did things that were really good. The actual Game 6 was pretty damn faithful. Magic taking his hook shot from half court that almost went in. The third quarter run by the Lakers, Magic being gassed, Cooper falling and taking that hard spill and using the smelling salts to wake him up. All real. So we're going to harp on the couple of things that aren't good. By the way, they do a good job of showing the crowd in that too, and the different arenas. A lot of times you'll watch a show that's based on a sporting event, and the arena just looks so fake, like a video game with the plastered faces and stuff that all look the same. I thought the crowd was surprisingly good in this, especially a Philly crowd, which is hostile, and they showed it. Same with Boston earlier in the season. So I think the people getting mad at the gameplay are probably the same people getting mad at the trophy they used, since they obviously couldn't get the rights to the Larry O'Brien trophy. And you're missing the point of the show entirely. Appreciate the characters and the actors that did such a good job in this, who I'll list in a second, my favorite ones. I do think if there's anything to point at that was pretty inaccurate just for the sake of drama, it was the Jeannie Buss stuff. She seemed to have more encouragement from Jerry Buss in real life than she did in this show, but even that, we're probably not done with that storyline. We're getting a season 2. We'll talk about where that's going to go. And they were trying to weave two stories of breaking the glass ceiling for women in business between her and Claire. And I think the storytelling-wise, they got caught between two similar stories, kind of. And Claire got the payoff in the end, the promotion from Jerry Buss, that I assumed, and a lot of people probably assumed, that Jeannie would get in the end. But I think they'll do more with that moving forward. And they were kind of alluding that their relationship is a mentor-mentee kind of thing. And it's a positive story either way, that they're both on the way up. And the Jeannie piece still paid off with her relationship to her father and her brothers. And there's still more to come on that front, which was very real. The power struggle for Lakers ownership continued until very recently. So if you want to gripe on something, I guess that's one of them. But they were still going out of their way to show a woman breaking the glass ceiling kind of story, if not once, then twice. So I don't know if it's something that we can hate on the writing for, whether it was accurate or not. I got to say, acting-wise, Solomon Hughes as Kareem was in his acting debut. Ridiculous. He has a PhD and played basketball in college, so they couldn't have found a better guy. Skyhook looked good. Quincy Isaiah as Magic, very good. Very, very good job. The smile. He has the smile, which is really hard to do, and he has the kind of flair on the basketball court. Not the skills, but the kind of unorthodox passing ability that they must have watched a lot of film and made sure that they nailed those beats, even if it's a quick cut scene. John C. Reilly just showed off as Jerry Buss. What a perfect performance. There was originally supposed to be Will Ferrell, and I think I don't know if he would have been great or not, but I'm really happy that John C. Reilly was able to embrace this. Jason Clarke as Jerry West. We went through that, but I really enjoyed his character, and I kind of wish Jerry West would be happy with how he was portrayed here, because I think a lot of people really enjoyed it, but I can't tell him how to feel. Gabby Hoffman as Claire Rothman, we mentioned. Hadley Robinson as Jeannie Buss. Good job, the two of them. I expect their relationship to grow in season 2. Sally Field as Jessie Buss. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Maybe, again, more dramatized than real, but I think it made for a good show. Adrian Brody as Pat Riley. Jason Segel as Paul Westhead. Wood Harris as Spencer Haywood. The finale, I mean, you could say over-dramatized and overacted, fine, but I think he did an unbelievable job, that visceral feeling, and then Kareem showing up at the end and them embracing and getting past it was beautiful. Beautiful TV, beautiful relationship. Also, Wood Harris is 52 years old. That's insane. Avon Barksdale from The Wire, playing a 30-year-old and pulled it off kind of fine. And the last standout I had written down was Rob Morgan as Irvin Johnson Sr. Great. Really nailed the home feel for Magic and where he came from, which was an important part of the story. James Lejour played Julius Irving, who played Mike in the show Las Vegas back in the day, which I really enjoyed. But the cool part to me, that's cool enough, but although he didn't really look like Dr. J nor an athlete, but it was speaking roles and you needed an actor. I get it. It's hard to figure out all of that. But they did cast a second Dr. J to do all the dunks, which was Jordan Sutherland. And you can catch him, we'll look at it in a second, at 1 Foot God on Instagram. He's just a dunker. He's like an Instagram content dunker. And they got him to do like the Rock the Baby dunk that was shown. It was really cool to see them make sure that the makeup was right and that you didn't really notice while watching the show, but that they called out one of the best dunkers that I've seen on the internet recently to try to portray Dr. J, because it's not an easy set of shoes to fill. I was also happy to see that Adam McKay's over-the-top fourth wall breaks were getting a little more subtle as time went on. The pilot was good, but it was a little too much of looking at the camera and doing this, and then, just talking to the audience. It's fine. It's kind of nice to see every once in a while because it's his flair and it's his style, but in the pilot, it was a little too much, and they throttled it back and let the story just be the story, which I was really happy about. So I really enjoyed this season. I think a lot of the controversy is not warranted. If you need a show to be completely, fully hyper-realistic, then there are a bunch of documentaries to watch about the Showtime Lakers. Magic has one himself. There's a million of them. Go watch that. If you want an entertaining show that's accurate enough for a huge basketball fan, and you get to see inside of these relationships between the players, whether it was real or not, you get to transform yourself and live in that time. We don't know what relationships are like between players now, but we think we do. What's the difference? You don't know how Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant actually interact on a daily basis. And if one day they make a show about it, people are going to say, oh, that's not how they did it. Like, we weren't there. And it's hard to take everyone at face value because they're also trying to sell their own stuff. Again, I'm not saying Jerry West is just shilling his own book here and that's why he's making this lawsuit for publicity. But the truth is, he has his own story that he is trying to sell and make money off of. And this has become more popular than his book. So, of course, he's going to try to make a headline about it. I don't know where that falls and how that settles, but I think this show is going to go on. I think it should go on, and I have some ideas of where they can go moving forward, but there's so much that I don't know how they close the gap. So let's look at some of the Lakers stuff here that has gone on through the years and see if we can figure out where they should go with season 2 and maybe beyond that. I pulled up Jamal Wilkes' stats, by the way. Over 20 points per game. Guy was a dead-eye shooter, and they didn't even really have threes. but could really play. And it's wild that he really wasn't included, but you got to pick some, and Norm Nixon got all the love, even though I think he was like pretty poorly in this game. This is the game 6 of the NBA Finals. Wilkes 37 and 10. Nixon went 1 for 10 from the field. Yeah, not good. But the thing that jumped out to me was, for as much as the Showtime Lakers are a finesse speed team, they bullied the Sixers here. I mean, they were worried about, they showed like this stylized Darryl Dawkins and Julius Erving kind of intro as that game started in the final episode. And you kind of figured like, oh, this is size and strength against speed and flash. Not the case. The Lakers had 52 rebounds in this game to 36. They got pounded. 4 different people with double-digit rebounds on the Lakers, 0 on the Sixers. They just played harder and better. So I thought that was interesting. I also find it funny how Mark Landsberger was the butt of a lot of jokes because he's a white guy with blonde hair and he looks like a surfer boy. I guess that's probably what it is. But even when Cooper went down with the injury in the show, they were talking about how Landsberger might have to come in and shoot a free throw and how the Lakers might be screwed. The other team gets to choose, blah, blah, blah. He had 10 rebounds in this game in 19 minutes. Not to say he's a great shooter. He wasn't. But that's a bummer for him to like be the butt of the joke. But you know what? I'm sure he's happy to be involved, and he knows that he played a real role on that championship team. So what's the real difference? I don't see him creating any lawsuits here. Julius Erving played great in this game, though. 13 for 23, 27 points. Didn't have a lot of help. Steve Mix off the bench. Henry Bibby. Related to Mike Bibby? Son. Wow. Look at that. And he played for the Knicks. And so did Mike Bibby. I didn't realize that. That's a pretty cool one. Very interesting. If you go back to the previous games in this series, I do want to see, yeah, Julius Erving dominated the game before, but Kareem dominated it worse. And Magic, a triple-double, shot 4 for 13 from the field. No one really talks about that. They didn't shoot well from the field in this game in general, but they found a way to win it. The game before, game 4, a really close one. Magic again, almost a triple-double. Kareem plays well. Norm Nixon played better in this one. Landsberger out there grabbing rebounds every single time. Darryl Dawkins had a big game in this. They got out-rebounded. Actually, Philly out-rebounded them this time, but still had... oh, no, they didn't. I'm sorry. 49 to 34. Lakers were just bigger and tougher, which is such a funny thing because you don't think about them that way. But, man, it's consistent. 56 to 37. And the assists were actually bigger for the Sixers by a lot. 34 to 20. It's such a weird opposite of how you would kind of feel like these games would go. I found the MVP stuff very interesting. I don't think Kareem had as many ill wills toward Magic as they made it seem a little bit in the show. But again, dramatized. It's fine. It's perfectly fine. And they ended up on perfectly good terms, so there was no real problem there. Let's see the rebounding numbers in this one. 52 to 34. Yeah, it's really interesting. So many steals in these games, too. Just a lot more physical defense, I suppose. But, yeah, to see that is such a funny thing. And game 1, 40 rebounds, 43 rebounds. So then the Lakers never got out-rebounded, even without Kareem. And for my money, I think Magic deserved the MVP, by the way. Stepping in and playing center and hitting those baby hooks. Like, looking back, it makes more sense to give it to Magic. Probably in the moment, it seemed like it was Kareem's time, but I don't really think that's relevant. Also wanted to show off the 1-foot God guy. Look, you can see him here in his makeup with Wood Harris. Look at that. I wonder if they have video of him dunking. We can watch some video of him dunking in general. I mean, he's just a freak. Some of the best dunks I've seen. I highly, highly recommend following this Instagram account, 1-foot God. Really cool. I hope they maybe bring him back, although it's probably not necessary. I'd like to explore some other players moving forward. Which brings me to my point. I want to kind of talk about where they can go from here, because I think there's a lot of things they can do, right? The following season, so we're here, 1980. They win. The following season, the Celtics win. And this Larry Bird thing that they're teasing is really fun, and I want to see that Larry and Magic relationship evolve. So I hope they don't skip completely over 81 season, but Magic gets hurt in this season, misses about half the year, and all of a sudden Magic and Westhead have this rivalry going on, which eventually Westhead leaves, Riley takes over the team. We know what goes on there. He goes on to legendarily be a coach, GM, and win a bunch of rings. But the 81 season is interesting. Do they skip it because Magic is hurt? Do they include it because Larry wins? Do they come back in 82 when Riley takes over for Westhead? That's a big one. The Boston rivalry really, really sets off in 84, the first time they play. But the Lakers and Sixers played 3 different times in the final, so I hope we get more Dr. J stuff. And in fact, the last time they played, they swept the Lakers, which is really interesting. 1983 finals. Let's look up the stats here. Because what the hell happened there? That they got swept. Moses just dominates, I guess? This is a kind of a different team, different Sixers team. Because you have Moses and Andrew Toney in addition to Dr. J and Mo Cheeks. And they have evolved since then. And Kareem wasn't as big a force on the glass, I suppose. Wilkes is still around. Nixon. Rambus has joined. Oh, God. Knicks fans everywhere. Sighing deeply. The Lakers fans, too, for that matter. Bob McAdoo was there already. They mentioned him earlier in the season as a possible trade candidate. That's kind of cool. Landsberger's still hanging around. It's pretty wild that they got beat this bad. 6-point loss, 10-point loss. Wow. 18-point loss and 7-point loss. None of these games were crazy, crazy close. Moses, though, was the difference, which is pretty interesting. Maybe they'll go into that. They actually showed Kareem as Moses in one of those like stylized dreamlike scenarios in the finale, so that was pretty cool. But yeah, you can do some of that, but you have to get to 84 eventually, right? This is where it really kicks off. This is where you have Magic at the peak of his powers. You have Larry peak of his powers. They've both already won. They both already won Finals MVP. Pat Riley's the coach. He's been with the team for a while. This is the first time they play. They play 1, 2, then the Celtics play the Rockets in 86. Then they play a third time here. So they play 3 times. Lakers end up winning 2 of them. You got to cover that 3 separated, not 3 in a row, but 3 out of 4 years. You got to get from 84 to 87. I can't imagine they're going to let this show go without going that far because the Red Auerbach, Jerry Buss stuff is set up. It's so important. And then there's so much more to get to. You can get to Kareem aging out because if you look at Kareem's stats by 86, 87, which is this finals between the Lakers and the Celtics before Pistons and Jordan. We'll get to that. Kareem was already on the downswing and Magic was really, really taking over. So could that be the end of this series? Potentially. I don't know how many seasons they're planning on doing. But if they wanted to go further and make this a more universe-y thing, I think they could, because after that, you can kind of do the fall of the Celtics, right? They make it in 87, they lose, and then Larry's back starts to go. That leads into the whole Dream Team era. We can get to that, but the fall of Boston is an important one, and the Red Auerbach waning years. They never really get back there until much later when they put the big 3 together with KG and Pierce and Ray Allen, Rondo, etc. I should mention Kendrick Perkins if I'm naming the whole entire lineup. I don't know why, but I am. Worst analysis ever, by the way. Not a Perkins guy on the talking head front, but what are you going to do? And then you can get the rise of the Magic Bird relationship after 87, which coincides with Magic getting sick, doing the Dream Team thing, them doing commercials together. That would be really fun to watch if we've already had a couple seasons of them being hardcore rivals, which we are already starting to see. We can get the rise of the bad boy Pistons here in the late 80s, early 90s, and then you can do the rise of MJ, which is connected to Magic because the Dream Team scenario was the handing off of the torch. And I don't know if you need to cover these seasons, but you can at least end this saga with that Dream Team stuff and Larry and Magic realizing with that famous scrimmage between them that this isn't going to be their league anymore. It's Michael's league now. And then if you needed to skip a bunch of time until around 2000 when Shaq comes to Lakers, if you wanted to keep it Lakers-centric, you could do that and then keep Jerry West around, keep some of the Lakers brass around, keep the Pat Riley thing going, follow up with him when he's going to other teams, get the Phil Jackson part of it together. There's so much. I don't know how they would possibly cast Shaq and Kobe since they're so relevant in the zeitgeist still, but they found a way to do it with Magic and Kareem, so maybe it's not too far-fetched. So I would be really cool with the fact that they could do, you know, maybe 3 seasons in this Showtime Lakers era, then do a time jump after you get to the Dream Team stuff, acknowledge Michael as like a little bit of a bridge, and then get to the Shaq and Kobe Lakers and see what we can really do here to make this just kind of like a Lakers show in general. Maybe you don't need to do that. Maybe you don't need to go that far. Maybe that's a spinoff. Maybe that's a little too risky because of the players that actually need to be shown. It's hard to cast Shaq, but it's hard to cast Kareem, like I said. So I would be really intrigued to see if they could do that, to kind of bridge that gap, have the Genie Bus character be a real connective tissue, the whole Bus family. It's about them, right? And see the whole Staples Center explosion, them moving on from the Forum. Imagine the final scene of those dark scenes in the Forum where they're alone, and whether it's Jerry or Genie in the middle of the court, or Magic just dribbling by himself. Those were amazing scenes. Imagine seeing that as they're going to close the stadium down and then open up the Staples Center and do this whole second phase of the show. It'd be really cool. So I really like this show very much. I'm very curious to see where it goes. And I hope you watch it. Check it out. Find out for yourself whether you thought it was accurate enough, whether you thought that people should gripe about it, whether Jerry West has a leg to stand on or whether he doesn't. I don't know. You know how I feel. Find out for yourself, but definitely watch it. If you're a basketball fan, I think you're going to like it. Even if you have to rag on some silliness during the game scenes, it's still worth watching for anyone who loves basketball. Check it out. Plenty of picks at MikeTheMush Sports. I know generally we're doing breakdowns and analysis of real games, and there's plenty of playoff stuff going on. But I thought this was relevant, and it was a fun way to connect my 2 podcasts at the @link_podcast. The Link Podcast you can find everywhere. We talk movies, music, television, all that kind of stuff, non-sports centric. So if you want more of that, find me over there. I'll sprinkle in some sports stuff here every now and then. Maybe best sports movies will go down one day. I don't know. We'll see what's going on. In any case, I felt like I needed to comment on it. Man, is it weird to say I like the Lakers? I'm such a Shaq fan that I'm down with the Lakers. As a Knicks fan, I feel like I don't really have any animosity towards them. And since I can't like the Celtics, I must like the Lakers. You got to pick somebody in that rivalry, right? And it's such a clear choice to pick the Hollywood team for these kind of shows. So I don't know if I want them to go down the road of like, oh, let's do a 90s Knicks show now. Let's do another Jordan Bulls show. Like, let it be. But continue this for what it is, because you have something here, and I've really been enjoying it. So HBO nails it again. Mwah, chef's kiss. Really enjoyed it. Looking forward to season 2. I will see you all on the other side. Give a subscribe. Give a like. I'm telling you, follow the Twitter and Instagram. We got picks. We're up about 50 units on the year in 2022 as we're recording this, and we're looking for more as the playoffs roll on. By the way, if you want something specific, if you're watching this when it airs, I think it's still worth Suns and Bucks to make the finals. You can get pretty good odds. They're both coming off of a loss as I record this in game 4 for both of them. So I think this is the best prices you're going to get. They both are going to have an opportunity to win a short 3-game series now against their opponent. And I think they should be able to take care of business on their home court at the very least. So we'll see what happens. I trust Giannis. I trust Chris Paul to bounce back. So if you want to pick here and you're too lazy to go over to the Twitter, which you should already be following, take a flyer on Suns and Bucks to still make the finals if you can get those odds at a decent price. We already have it. We'll be rooting for it. I'll be updating you on the channel at least weekly with some more analysis, some more picks, and always on the social media. We got picks flying. Good luck. Bet smart. See you later. Peace out.